Blame it on the goose, got you feeling loose. Blame it on the drum, got you in the zone. Blame it on the
On January 16, 1920, the 18th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified, which prohibited the manufacturing, sale, and transportation of intoxicating liquors. This amendment stated that no alcohol beverage could be sold, manufactured, imported, or exported legally in the U.S. Soon after, the Volstead Act was written so that medicinal alcohol could be used. It classified illegal alcohol beverage as those that contain more than 5% of the alcohol content.
Prohibition was a movement started by Protestant congregations and women's groups who wished to eliminate the consumption of alcohol in the United States. By 1830, the American population consumed 7.1 gallons of alcohol per capita on an annual basis. The advocates of prohibition felt that alcoholism was a problem in America that couldn't be cured unless the enforcement was put in place by the government.
Many didn't believe in prohibition at first, yet by the beginning of the 20th century, more and more recognized the problems that arose from alcohol consumption. Employers were forced to pay the many liquor-related accidents that occurred at work. Alcohol had become so deeply integrated into American society that there were more saloons than schools, libraries, hospitals, theaters, parks, or churches. All of this led the temperance campaign of the late 19th century to the drive of prohibition. Of the first 20 years of the 1900s, supporters of prohibition were known as dry, whereas non-supporters were known as wet. By enforcing prohibition of alcohol, advocates hoped to decrease crime, poverty, and improve the quality of life. Prohibition movements have sprung up across the United States, driven by religious groups who considered alcohol, specifically drunkenness, a threat to the nation.
As early as 1873, the Women's Christian Temperance Union of Ohio called for the abolition of the sale of alcohol. They were soon joined in the fight by the even more powerful Anti-Saloon League, founded in 1893 in Ohio, but later expanded into a national organization that endorsed political candidates and lobbied for legislation against saloons. Beginning around 1906, the ASL led a renewed call for prohibition legislation at the state level. Through speeches, advertisements, and public demonstrations at saloons and bars, prohibition advocates attempted to convince people that eliminating alcohol from society would eliminate poverty and social vices, such as immoral behavior and physical violence. Soon, 48 out of 50 states had individually passed prohibition laws, and the issue went to Congress. The legislation won, and prohibition went into effect January 1920. The politicians that supported prohibition were part of the progressive movement, although the concept seems conservative. Prohibition included many moral ideals of the progressive movement. Supporters of prohibition felt that alcohol conflicted with religious teachings, which the progressives felt was very important. In addition, the progressives felt that they improved the lifestyles of the lower class by increasing the efficiency caused by sobriety.
The 18th Amendment is the only amendment to be repealed from the Constitution.
We want beer! We want beer! We want beer! We want beer!
Prohibition created disrespect for the law. Everyone was breaking the law and drinking alcohol. This caused people to treat other laws with disrespect, causing anarchy in the United States.
Prohibition eroded respect for religion. Evangelicals were main supporters of the prohibition, so because religious people were standing in the way of society's consumption of alcohol, anti-prohibitionists lost respect for the religious because they didn't support their cause.
Prohibition created organized crime. Gangsters were often the dealers of alcohol, and due to the prohibition, people would get alcohol wherever they could. Therefore, gangsters became well-liked, and the common person began supporting them in their crimes in an attempt to receive alcohol in exchange. If caught by law enforcement, people would often form mobs, and there is a power in numbers, so oftentimes law enforcement would lose battles against drunkards. Prohibition overburdened police, courts, and the penal system. Many people were acting against the 18th Amendment, so the court system started to focus more on prohibition laws. 44% of the cases were prohibition cases. Jails began to become overcrowded, and courts started to pay less attention to other more important cases.
Prohibition harmed people financially, emotionally, and morally. People in the alcohol business lost their jobs due to prohibition and had the choice to either find lower paying work or become criminals by keeping their profession.
Prohibition caused physical harm. Because people couldn't buy alcohol, they began to make it themselves. This alcohol is called moonshine. It contained up to 90% alcohol and THC from marijuana, which made it more potent and dangerous than the regulated alcohol that used to be sold. Prohibition made cigarette smoking a national habit. In many states, cigarettes were prohibited as well. This seemed to make them irresistible. By the 1930s, cigarettes were legal everywhere and the amount of people smoking almost tripled. It became a trend to smoke, and this trend was far more dangerous than the consumption of alcohol.
Prohibition was phenomenally expensive. The government couldn't tax alcohol sales because it was illegal, so they lost a significant amount of tax revenue. People were still paying for alcohol, and alcohol was still being sold, often at a higher price because of the dangers of being caught. But instead of the government making money off of it, they were losing money.
Okay, so
Charlie, I got the stuff. Charlie.
can I have it? Can I have your alcohol?
Huh?
Can I have your beer? What you got?
I'll be right back.
Thanks, man.
Pay up, man.
Charlie Pitney!
Blame it on my